Hello, and welcome to Church at Home with Rachael for Monday, the 17th of October. My name is Rachael Parker. I am an Anglican priest in the Diocese of Edmonton in the Anglican Church of Canada, and I am the rector or the priest for a group called Dayspring Ministries, which is comprised of St. Mary's Anglican Church in Edgerton, St. Saviour's in Vermilion, and St. Thomas and Wainwright in the southeastern corner of the diocese in the province of Alberta. It's good to see you today. I've been thinking about something all weekend, and it's something that I watched. It's like watching a car wreck or something. On Thursday morning, I was having my breakfast and drinking my coffee, and they came on our news station to watch the verdict for Nicholas Cruz, who was the gunman who at the Parkland shooting in, I think it was 2018 in Florida. And I listened as they went through all 17 statements about the 17 people who had been killed. They didn't talk about the 17 who had been wounded because Nicholas Cruz pled guilty. And the question was the verdict because he pled guilty. There was no question that he was guilty of this mass shooting. The question was, would the jury come down that he would get life in prison without a chance of parole, or would he get capital punishment? Would he be sentenced to death? And in each case, there was not a unanimous decision that he would be sentenced to death. So he will receive presumably 17 counts of life in prison without a chance of parole. So he's never going to see light of day outside of prison walls. And I think that's okay. The question, though, for me became, what do I think of capital punishment? Do I believe that we as human beings have the right to put another person to death? Do I believe that it's appropriate that the punishment for recognizing that someone has put someone else to death, and hence this question is being asked, is it appropriate that we have an eye for an eye? That someone else's life should be taken because they took someone else's life themselves. My gut, the biggest part of me says absolutely not. We shouldn't be killing anyone. We should not be entertaining the idea that we have the right to take another person's life, particularly when what we're talking about is their decision to take another person's life. It doesn't seem logical to me that we would say to someone, you don't have the right to take a life, so we have the right to take yours. It doesn't compute in my brain. In my heart, it doesn't speak to me either, because I don't believe that anyone in humanity is completely irredeemable. And I know that will probably cause a bit of pushback because there are plenty of examples in society today and in years past where we all look and say there's nothing redeemable in that person's character. How could they possibly have made reparations? How could they possibly change the essence of who they were so much that they would become a person worthy of having a life to live? I mean, I've participated, obviously not suggesting this, but I've had so many conversations lately about those people who are saying, like, why isn't there just a well-placed sniper around Putin? What would happen if? And it always brings back questions about the Holocaust and Hitler and all of his henchmen and all of those things about who is redeemable. And I know this is not going to be a popular statement, but I do believe that every person is created in the image of God. I believe that every person is loved by God. Now, I've got stepsons, and I know that I love them every day. I've always loved them. Since the moment I got to know them, I've loved them. Do I always like them? No. Some of the decisions they make, the responses they have, the conversations we have had, the way that we have treated one another hasn't always been likable. Has it made me stop loving them? No. And I am a mere human person. I am a woman who inherited two young boys because of the person I fell in love with, and have lived with that, being a stepmom for 17 years. It has its good days and it has its bad, but not once have I stopped loving them. And I am a mere human being. How much more does God love his children, God's children? When I look at someone like Nicholas Cruz, sitting behind a table with his head down and his hands folded, knowing he pled guilty, he recognizes that what he did was wrong. I don't know his heart. I don't know what was going on in his mind when he did that. I don't know whether he was insane or an angry young man or disturbed. I don't know. I can't ever know. I can't ever know the anguish of those parents, of the siblings, of the boyfriends and girlfriends, the spouses of those people who were killed, that wake up every morning and know that the person they love so much is gone because of one day when one person made such hideous decisions. I can't imagine what that feels, and I hope I will never know. But again, I am not God. I am not God. I have not got the capacity to forgive that God does. I don't have the ability to know what another person is thinking or what drives them to do what they do or how they might change. I don't know that Victor Cruz might not spend the rest of his long life in prison, and he may not find that he comes to recognize what he has done is so wrong, that he doesn't seek forgiveness and live a life that works toward becoming a better person. And I recognize that his life will not be worth living. A cell, some time outside on the grounds and under the sunshine and the air, the horrors of being in prison, the horror of being in prison as a young man who did what he did. His life will not be worth living. Is it right that we then say we should take it away from him? I imagine there are going to be a lot of people right now who are angry that he didn't get the death penalty. And I imagine there will be many who will be glad that he didn't. Not because he didn't deserve it, not because he doesn't deserve to be punished, because he does, but because it isn't right that a life be taken to pay for a life. I really don't see how that works out. It seems like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You take one life, and then what of the person? Forget the issue of the person who's taken those lives and deserves to be put to death. What about the person who has to walk him down the hall? What about the person who feeds him his last meal? What about the chaplain, the padre, who is there to pray with him in those moments? What about his family? What about the person who has to take his life, the executioner? Because at the end of the day, it is still just one person who holds his life in their hands. And even if it's their job, that's what they're paid to do, they have to go home that night knowing that when they went to work, someone was alive, and when they came home from work, someone was dead because they took that life. The ramifications of the capital punishment are so far more far-reaching than simply we got revenge or justice was served. I understand why people would want to have capital punishment, and I've had conversations with someone that I respect and I know that thought that these things are well thought out, whose thinking is that if you kill a law enforcement agent or a military member, or like that, that capital punishment is appropriate. I'm just not able to go there myself. I think for me, I have to hold out hope that sometime in a person's life there can be a moment of redemption. Maybe I'm Pollyanna. Maybe I just try too hard to see the possibilities of good. But I can't imagine that God created any life that Jesus gave up his life for that wasn't worth that ultimate sacrifice. So Nicholas Cruz will live his life in prison, knowing what he did, knowing that there are 34 families, the 17 who were killed and the 17 who were injured, whose lives will never be the same, just as his will never be the same. I can only pray that somewhere in there he is able to find some sort of peace in which he recognizes that he is a child of God. And I pray for each of the families that they will be able to find peace, that they will be able to know that justice has been meted out, and that they will be able to grieve and to heal and to remember with celebration the lives of those they've loved. Just some thoughts I've been having this weekend about capital punishment and what our role is, what it should be, and what God's is. Feel free to tell me how you think. I think you probably will. I'm not going to disagree with you. I'm not going to argue. Just ask that you be respectful in your comments. Have a great day. God bless you. And I will see you again tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachael on Tuesday.